Welcome to Cooking to Feast. Today we're taking bananas and some cake materials, and we're going to be making banana pudding trifle. This here is a great dessert for any banana lovers here. So we got bananas, of course, and then we got cake ingredients. But one of the big things about this is the equipment. Well, you'll see here I have an 8-inch pan and I have a 9-inch pan. You might ask why we're doing that. It's because of the sloped walls of the trifle dish. The 8-inch pan sits better in the bottom, right there, the bottom, while the 9-inch pan will sit better at the top. Again, because of the sloped walls, we're going to need 2 different size cakes here. If you just have 9-inch pans, use them, because we'll cut them to size. So we're going to start off by making our cake here. All-purpose flour, 2 cups to be exact. So you can measure it out, or you can use a scale. Since I'm using a scale, I'm just getting the exact measurement here. Here's a pro tip. If you can use a scale, I would recommend it. 2 cups here is 240 grams. And then to that 240 grams of flour, we're going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. You might think salt's weird in baking, but trust me, salt brings out the best in baked goods. So to that, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of baking powder, not baking soda, but baking powder. And we're going to add this to our dry ingredients here. Once you've added your baking powder, then we're going to whisk it all together. There we go. You want to get it evenly mixed up, so you don't have to go crazy on this. A hand mixer will be fine, or you can just use the whisk here. Next thing we're going to be adding is 4 eggs to a separate bowl. This is going to be our wet ingredient bowl. Yes, having the eggs at room temperature does make a difference. It's not as if you use cold eggs like the cake is going to blow up or something. The texture is better when you use warm or room temperature eggs. So take these eggs, we're going to use that same whisk, and we're just going to whisk them up, basically the same as we would do for scrambled eggs here. We want to make sure it's even. To this egg mixture, we're going to now add our sugar. We want a nice, sweet, delicious cake, so we're going to be using 1.5 cups of sugar. Once you add in your sugar there, and you don't have to do anything gentle, but get it on in that bowl, we're going to mix it up so that all the egg is completely coating in one homogeneous mixture with our sugar. Spend a couple minutes here, and I'm going to do this by hand, mostly because I want to save my KitchenAid mixer for the whipped cream later. Once you have it nice and mixed together, start adding some of your dry ingredients into this. It's important not to overmix this, so once you see that the dry ingredients have been incorporated into the wet ingredients, add a little bit more into it. You don't have to get it so it's perfect. You just want to mix it just enough so that the kind of the powderiness disappears. When the powderiness disappears, that means add some more of your dry ingredients. Eventually, you're going to get a mixture that looks like this. Kind of looks like cake batter already, but it's pretty thick. So next step here is we're going to add 1 stick of butter to this measuring glass, and then we're going to melt it. And that's what you get, 1/2 cup of melted butter. To that 1/2 cup, I'm adding 1 cup of milk for 1.5 cups total. To the mixture, 3 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Also, quick tip, 3 teaspoons is equal to 1 tablespoon. So you can also just skip the teaspoons on this. I'm using a homemade vanilla extract, and click the link if you want to see how to make your own. Then in addition, 3 teaspoons of oil or 1 tablespoon of oil. I'm using vegetable oil here. Once you have it all in there, let's give it a good mixing. And this is our last of our wet ingredients here. So to our cake mix, I'm going to switch over to a spatula now, and we're going to incorporate this a little bit at a time into our mixture. So see how it kind of takes a little bit of effort to get it in there, but then eventually it blends well. You'll see that the batter is now quite liquidy and not that like real thick, almost pancake-like batter. It should run off your spatula like this. This is just fine. You might think it's a little too thin, but this is good. So of course, grease up your baking dishes here, your cake pans. We're going to divide the batter up between the 8-inch and the 9-inch one here. So I just eyeball these I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I'm not the avid baker all the time. So this is what I got. And then, of course, we're going to tap our pans, get all the air bubbles out. Once the oven is preheated to 350, we're going to bake these for about 30 to 35 minutes. Of course, when a toothpick comes out clean, that means they're ready. Another good indicator is that they pulled off the sides of the pans and they're slightly golden brown there. So we're going to let these rest and cool because cake tends to rip apart when it's still hot. So we don't want that to happen because we need to trim these up. We're going to get started with our banana mixture. To start our pudding, I'm going to reinforce it with some more banana flavoring. To do this, I'm going to take 2 whole bananas and I'm going to use this mortar and pestle and I'm going to mash it up. I don't always get the mortar and pestle out too often, so this is kind of fun to do. And you'll see the consistency that I'm looking for is just completely mashed. So again, 2 bananas here. And once you have a result that kind of looks like this, that's what you want. And if you don't have the mortar and pestle, just, use a fork or something until you get to the right consistency. I'm going to put the contents into my smallest pot here because we're going to caramelize this. And how we're going to do that, we're going to take a 1/4 cup of sugar and we're going to blend it into our banana mixture. Since these bananas aren't like real dark on the outside, almost towards black, I'm going to try to give them a little more depth of flavor that you would normally do. When you're making banana bread or something and you want to use them till they're basically black on the outside because they're the sweetest. So I'm reinforcing it a little bit. And now we're going to move on to our pudding as well. So bring our banana mixture, put it on medium heat, and watch it because there is sugar in there. In a large pot, non-stick, we're going to take 4 egg yolks. We're going to blend it together with some sugar, 2/3 of a cup. Next, we're going to add 6 tablespoons of cornstarch. This is what's going to thicken up our pudding mixture. Also, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Again, just trust me on it, you'll want some salt in there. And then 4.5 cups of milk. I'm using whole milk. Whisk it all together so it's a homogeneous mixture. And this is going to be the start of our pudding. We're going to cook it over a medium to medium-low heat, and gradually it'll get warm and the cornstarch will start to absorb and expand. At the same time, our banana sugar mixture is starting to heat up, and it hasn't really thickened up too much yet, but it is starting to get hot, and that's going to evaporate some of the water off. See this little chunk that's attached to my whisk? That's just the start of the process here. Looking back at our bananas now, it's starting to thicken up and tighten up just a little bit. We still got a ways to go. I want to get it darker here and I want to get more of the water out of it. At this point here, we're back over to the cornstarch pudding mixture, and it is definitely thickening up at this point. You'll see it attached to the whisk, and it is thick and is bubbling. So try not to burn yourself, and once it gets to that consistency, pull it off the heat. Let's take a look at the bananas again. They're getting darker, but it's not quite there yet. To our pudding, while it's off the heat, we'll add 3 tablespoons of butter and our vanilla extract to it. 3 teaspoons, or again, 1 tablespoon. Put it right in there and blend it together. This is what's going to really step it up, make it creamy and make it rich. Because otherwise it's just going to taste just like milk for the most part, milk and sugar. This is where you're getting that real nice vanilla and the richness from the fat from the butter. Of course, butter makes everything better. We don't have to tire that one out. And so here's our finished bananas. Look at that. It's darkened in color. It's really thickened up. Once it looks like that, you're done. And I'm just going to add this in it because I want a real strong banana taste into my banana pudding. I don't want vanilla pudding exactly with just some banana pieces thrown in there. I want a deep, rich banana flavoring. And that's it. That is our pudding. The only thing left is to let it cool down a little bit. The final big ingredient is going to be 2 cups of heavy cream because we're making whipped cream here. And I saved the KitchenAid mixer for this right here. So I didn't have to wash anything because, I can blend some other things by hand, but I'm definitely not trying to do whipped cream by hand. You can do it. Your arms are going to burn. If anything, I would suggest at least using a hand mixer. When do you stop? Well, when you start getting stuff that looks like this, the stiff peaks and everything, you're done. So here we got a real life example. This is my top layer, and this is my bottom layer. See how they are? There's a difference of 1 inch here. So we're gonna cut the cakes off to make them level, and this is the 8-inch going in the bottom. It's not perfect. It does sit in there pretty nicely. For our top layer, I'm just cutting the edges off, and then we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna level it out. Here we go, the big thing, the bananas. So I'm gonna take 5 or 6 large bananas here. We're gonna cut these up into little slices. Might seem like a lot of bananas, but we have a big dish. So take big handfuls of bananas and layer it out there so you can't really even see much of the cake anymore. This is what you're looking for right there. And we're gonna do something different here. I'm gonna take some granulated sugar, and I'm just going to pour it over top of it. I don't have an amount here because it's just get it so that you see some sugar on there. Because what we're gonna do next is a little inspiration from a creme brulee. So I'm taking my torch here, and I'm going to get some really good bubbliness, the caramelization of that sugar. Similar to what they do with a creme brulee here, I want to do with this. You're not gonna get this texture, that crackliness of it to stay, but I think it's a nice, extra flavor that we're gonna put into here. A little bit more richness. Next, once your pudding's cooled down a little bit, let's put a nice layer over top of that. And you'll see it starts to add up pretty fast. So be careful on how much you put in. Next, we have a layer of whipped cream. You can see we're about halfway through here now. We're gonna take our other cake layer, we're gonna place it in there, and we're gonna push down to try to get as much of the air out as we can. More bananas, because we're just repeating the process, and then torch it. See how we get that nice amber color in there. More banana pudding, the star of this dish, and then whipped cream to top off the trifle. And there we go. That's the finished product. You'll see the layers here. It's almost like an archaeology dig. Look at that. Cream, banana pudding, cake. We don't need any vanilla wafers. We have cake here. That's the best part. So look at that. You can probably see a piece of layers of history right here. Take it to a cookout, because that's what I did. And here's what it looks like when you're serving it. And it went up fast. I really recommend this for any kind of outdoor cookout. So this was the banana pudding trifle. This is Cooking the Feast. I hope you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more.